The snowplow blades scraped against asphalt as Marcus Chun guided the truck through the blizzard. Visibility was near zero, the headlights barely penetrating the wall of white that had descended on the city 3 hours ago. His radio crackled with reports from other drivers, all struggling to keep the main roads clear. Marcus had been working snow removal for 4 years now, ever since he needed steady work that kept him outdoors, away from the sterile halls and beeping machines that once defined his life. Tonight was different, though. The storm had come in faster and harder than predicted, catching everyone off guard. He was making his third pass down Riverside Drive when he heard it. A sound so faint, he almost dismissed it as whined through the trees. But something made him slow the truck, straining to listen over the rumble of the diesel engine. There was again, a whisper carried on the wind, so soft it could have been his imagination. Marcus pulled to the shoulder and rolled down his window, ignoring the blast of frigid air that hit his face. For 30 seconds, he heard nothing but the howl of the storm. Then, barely audible above the wind, came a small voice calling for help. Marcus grabbed his emergency flashlight and jumped from the truck cab, his boots sinking deep into the fresh powder. The voice had come from somewhere to his left, beyond the guardrail where the road sloped down toward the frozen creek. He called out into the darkness, his voice swallowed by the wind. Then he heard it again, weaker this time, a small cry that sent ice through his veins. Moving quickly but carefully down the embankment, he swept the flashlight beam across the snow-covered landscape. There, partially buried beneath a drift that had formed against a fallen log, he saw a flash of bright pink fabric. Marcus rushed forward and began digging frantically with his gloved hands, his heart pounding as he uncovered a small form. The little girl couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Her lips were blue, her breathing shallow and rapid. Snow clung to her dark hair and eyelashes. She was conscious but barely responsive, her brown eyes unfocused and glassy. Marcus felt his training kick in automatically. He checked her pulse, weak but present. Her skin was dangerously cold to the touch. Hypothermia, stage 2, maybe 3. He needed to get her core temperature up immediately. Without thinking, he began the assessment he had performed hundreds of times before, his hands moving with practiced efficiency as he checked for injuries while dialing 911. The ambulance arrived within minutes, its red and blue lights cutting through the swirling snow. Marcus had wrapped the little girl in his heavy work coat and was maintaining her airway when the paramedics reached them. At St. Mary's Hospital, the emergency department buzzed with controlled chaos. Marcus carried the girl through the automatic doors, still wrapped in his coat, snow melting from his boots onto the polished floor. Dr. Rebecca Hartwell looked up from her clipboard with barely concealed irritation. She was tall, sharp-featured, with steel-gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her white coat was pristine, her manner brisk and dismissive. "You can set her on the gurney there," she said curtly to Marcus, not bothering to make eye contact. "The nurses will take over now. I assume you're just the one who found her." Marcus nodded toward the child. "She's been hypothermic for at least 30 minutes. Core temperature is probably around 92 degrees. Her breathing was labored when I first found her, but it's stabilized. No obvious external trauma, but you'll want to check for frostbite on her extremities." Dr. Hartwell finally looked at him properly, her eyebrows raised in annoyance. "I think we can handle the medical assessment, mister." She glanced at his snow-covered work clothes and heavy boots with obvious disdain. "Thank you for bringing her in." Marcus retreated to the waiting area, but couldn't bring himself to leave. Something about the little girl reminded him of Sophie during those terrifying nights when fever had racked her small body. The same dark hair, the same fragile build. He stared through the glass partition, watching the medical team work. Dr. Hartwell moved with efficient precision, but Marcus noticed things others might miss. The way she checked vitals, the warming protocol she ordered. It was textbook, but not aggressive enough for severe hypothermia. His phone buzzed. A text from his neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. "Sophie's asleep. Hope your shift goes well tonight. Stay safe in this storm." Marcus closed his eyes, remembering. 5 years ago, he had been the one in scrubs, the one making split-second decisions in pediatric emergency rooms. Dr. Marcus Chun, they had called him then, before Elena's cancer, before watching helplessly as his wife faded away in a hospital bed while he stood by, all his medical training useless against the disease that stole her from them. After the funeral, he couldn't go back, couldn't face another child's frightened eyes, another parent's desperate hope. The smell of antiseptic and the sound of monitoring equipment had become unbearable reminders of his failure to save the person who mattered most. So he had walked away from medicine, choosing instead to clear snow from empty roads in the darkness. Marcus watched through the glass as the little girl's condition changed. Her color wasn't improving as quickly as it should have. The warming blankets weren't enough. She needed active core rewarming, but he could see Dr. Hartwell was following a conservative protocol. He stood up and approached the nurse's station. "The girl needs warmed 4 fluids," he said quietly to the charge nurse. "Her core temperature isn't rising fast enough with passive warming alone." The nurse looked at him with polite confusion. "Sir, you'll need to speak with the doctor about medical concerns." "Are you family?" "I'm just someone who cares about getting this right," Marcus replied, frustration creeping into his voice. He could see the child's oxygen saturation dropping on the monitor behind the nurse's shoulder. Dr. Hartwell emerged from the trauma bay, pulling off her gloves. She noticed Marcus at the desk and walked over with visible irritation. "I thought I made it clear that we have this handled. Your concern is noted, but I need you to let us do our jobs." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "Look, I know you think I'm just some guy with a snowplow, but that child is showing signs of moderate hypothermia. Her metabolic rate is still depressed. Passive rewarming alone won't be sufficient." Dr. Hartwell's expression hardened. "Sir, I've been practicing emergency medicine for 15 years. I don't need medical advice from civilians." Marcus paced the waiting room, his hands clenched into fists. Through the glass, he could see the little girl's numbers weren't improving. Her heart rate was still too slow, her breathing shallow. Every instinct screamed at him to act. The automatic doors slid open and Sophie rushed in, her cheeks red from the cold. Mrs. Patterson followed close behind, shaking snow from her coat. "Daddy, what's wrong?" Sophie asked, immediately sensing his distress. She was 8 years old, but had learned to read his moods with uncanny accuracy, especially since Elena's death. "I found a little girl in the snow tonight. Honey, she's sick, and the doctors aren't listening to me." Sophie studied his face with those wise brown eyes that reminded him so much of her mother. "Why aren't they listening?" "Because they don't know who I used to be," Marcus said quietly. "They see my work clothes and think I don't understand." "But you do understand," Sophie said with quiet certainty. "You helped me when I was sick. You saved that bird with a broken wing last summer. You know how to take care of things." Marcus knelt down and pulled his daughter close. "Sometimes helping people means being brave, even when it's scary. Like when Mommy was sick and you never gave up." Sophie whispered against his shoulder. "Exactly like that, sweetheart. Sometimes we have to be brave for people who can't be brave for themselves." The alarm from the trauma bay pierced through the hospital's quiet hum. Marcus's head snapped up as he saw nurses rushing toward the little girl's room. Her heart rate had dropped dangerously low on the monitor. Dr. Hartwell barked orders, but Marcus could see the uncertainty in her movements. She was treating this like mild hypothermia when clearly it had progressed beyond that point. The child was going into cardiac depression. Marcus kissed Sophie's forehead and stood up. "Stay with Mrs. Patterson, sweetheart. Daddy has to help now." He walked straight through the trauma bay doors, ignoring the protests from the nursing staff. Dr. Hartwell looked up in fury as he approached the bedside. "Security," she called out, but Marcus was already at the girl's side, his trained eyes taking in the monitors, the force setup, the warming protocol. "Stop what you're doing right now," Dr. Hartwell demanded. "You have no authority to be in here." Marcus looked directly into her eyes, his voice calm but commanding. "My name is Dr. Marcus Chun. I'm board certified in pediatric emergency medicine. This child is in severe hypothermia with cardiac involvement, and your current protocol is insufficient." The room fell silent except for the beeping monitors. Dr. Hartwell stared at him in shock. But Marcus had already turned his attention to the little girl, his hands moving with practiced precision as 5 years of suppressed medical instinct came flooding back. Marcus moved with fluid precision, his hands remembering skills he thought he had buried forever. "We need warm saline for 38 degrees Celsius," he directed the nursing staff. "Start active core rewarming immediately. Her cardiac output is compromised." Dr. Hartwell stood frozen, watching as Marcus took control of her patient. The nurses, recognizing competent medical authority regardless of his snow-covered clothing, began following his orders without question. "Her core temperature is 89 degrees, not the 92 I estimated earlier," Marcus said, checking the thermometer probe. "We're looking at severe hypothermia with cardiovascular depression. I need heated, humidified oxygen and warm peritoneal lavage setup." The charge nurse moved quickly to gather supplies while Marcus carefully examined the little girl's extremities. Minimal frostbite, good perfusion returning to fingers and toes. Her breathing was becoming more regular as her metabolic processes slowly awakened. Within minutes, the child's heart rate began to climb steadily. Color returned to her lips and cheeks as her circulation improved. Marcus monitored her vital signs with the focused intensity that had made him one of the hospital's most respected pediatric emergency physicians years ago. Dr. Hartwell finally found her voice. "How did you know the exact temperature differential needed for the saline?" Marcus glanced up from his patient. "Because I've treated dozens of hypothermic children. This is what I do, or rather what I used to do." The trauma bay doors burst open as Dr. James Morrison, the chief of medicine, hurried in. Word had spread quickly through the hospital about the unusual situation unfolding in the emergency department. Dr. Morrison stopped short when he saw Marcus at the bedside, monitoring the little girl's steadily improving vital signs. "Marcus Chun," he said with genuine surprise and warmth. "I wonder what happened to you after you left pediatrics." Dr. Hartwell's face went pale as she realized the magnitude of her mistake. "You know him?" "Know him?" Dr. Morrison smiled. "Marcus was one of our finest pediatric emergency physicians. Saved more children's lives than anyone I've worked with. We were devastated when he left the profession." Marcus looked up from checking the girl's pupils, which were now reactive and focused. "She's stable now. Core temperature is climbing steadily. She should make a full recovery with no neurological deficits." Dr. Hartwell stepped forward, her earlier arrogance replaced by professional respect and obvious embarrassment. "Dr. Chun, I owe you an apology. I made assumptions based on your appearance that were completely inappropriate. Your intervention saved this child's life." The little girl stirred on the bed, her brown eyes fluttering open. She looked around the room with confusion before her gaze settled on Marcus's kind face. "Are you the man who found me in the snow?" she whispered, her voice barely audible but clear. Marcus smiled gently. "Yes, sweetheart. You're safe now." The little girl's parents arrived an hour later, their faces etched with terror and relief. Maria Santos clutched her husband's hand as they rushed to their daughter's bedside, where she was now sitting up, color fully returned to her cheeks. Lily had wandered away from their apartment during the storm while her parents were clearing snow from their car. She had gotten disoriented in the blizzard and fallen down the embankment, too frightened and cold to call for help until she heard Marcus's truck. As Marcus watched the family reunion, something shifted deep inside his chest. For the first time in 5 years, he had saved a child's life without thinking of Elena's death. The fear and pain that had driven him from medicine felt different now, transformed into something else entirely. Dr. Morrison joined him at the observation window. "You still have it, Marcus. That instinct, that skill. I've never seen someone transition so seamlessly from civilian to physician. It's like you never left." "I'm not sure I ever really did leave," Marcus admitted quietly. "I just convinced myself I had." "We have an opening in pediatric emergency," Dr. Morrison said gently. "No pressure, but if you ever want to come home, we'd welcome you back with open arms." Marcus looked through the glass at little Lily, now giggling as her father told her silly jokes to distract her from the medical equipment. He thought of Sophie waiting in the lobby. Of all the children, he could still help. Marcus found Sophie and Mrs. Patterson in the waiting room. His daughter jumped up when she saw him, searching his face for answers. "Is the little girl okay, Daddy?" "She's going to be fine, sweetheart." Marcus sat down beside her, pulling her close. "And I think Daddy might be okay, too." Sophie studied him with those perceptive eyes. "You helped her the way you used to help people before Mommy got sick, didn't you?" Marcus nodded, amazed at his daughter's understanding. "I did. And you know what? It didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It felt good to help someone again." "So you're going to be a doctor again?" Sophie asked, her voice filled with quiet hope. "I think I might be, if that's okay with you. It would mean some changes for us. Different hours sometimes, but also doing something that really matters." Sophie wrapped her arms around his neck. "Mommy always said you were the best doctor because you cared so much about your patients. I think she would be happy if you went back to helping children." Marcus felt tears threaten as he held his daughter close. Through the window, he could see the snow still falling, but the storm was beginning to pass. Inside the hospital, families were reuniting, children were healing, and life was moving forward. Dr. Morrison appeared at his shoulder. "Have you given any thought to our conversation?" Marcus looked down at Sophie, then back at the physician who had once been his colleague and mentor. "Yes, I have. When can I start?" 3 months later, Dr. Marcus Chun walked through the pediatric emergency department wearing scrubs that felt like coming home. The familiar sounds and smells no longer brought pain, but purpose. Each day brought new challenges, new chances to make a difference in young lives. Lily Santos had made a complete recovery and visited regularly with her parents, bringing drawings and thank you cards. She had become something of a legend in the department, the little girl who survived the blizzard and brought their best doctor back. Sophie adjusted well to the changes, proud to tell her friends that her daddy was a hero doctor again. She often did homework in his office, content to be near him while he saved lives the way he once tried to save her mother. On this particular evening, as Marcus finished his shift, he found a new patient file on his desk. A 7-year-old boy with pneumonia, brought in by worried parents who spoke little English. As he read the chart, Marcus smiled, remembering the scared father he had once been, the uncertainty, the desperate need for someone to care. He picked up the file and headed toward the trauma bay, ready to be that someone for another family in need. Outside, fresh snow was beginning to fall, but Marcus no longer heard whispers of distress in the wind. Instead, he heard possibilities, second chances, and the quiet promise that sometimes our greatest gifts emerge from our deepest pain. If this story touched your heart, please drop a comment and let us know if you've ever discovered someone had incredible hidden talents, or share your favorite moment from Marcus and Lily's story.